Hello guys and welcome back to Eyes on the Ball. This is my round 17 tips video. So bye rounds are finally over, which is always good. And yeah, full round of footy this week. So we've got double header on the Friday night. Well, 2 games overlap. Then 4 games on the Saturday. So pretty big round of footy in terms of games. There is some big rivalries. Carlton Collingwood's happening. North are playing their 100-year match, so there is a few things happening this week. But as it has been for the last couple of weeks, top nine's probably set up. It's just who gets that last few spots in the 8 and who has to miss out. But yeah, last week 1 out of 7 Ollie's calls and got 6 out of 7 tips correct. So my tips last week got 6 out of 7, so wasn't a great week, but not a bad week, probably one of my better weeks of the year. As always, I always do bad early on in the round. Tip the Blues to get by 13. They lost by 50, so pretty bad margin there. Pretty bad tipping them full stop. Bulldogs got up in a close one over the Swans. Gold Coast got up in a pretty close one over Melbourne. Hawks smashed North. Collingwood easily beat West Coast, but West Coast put up a decent fight. Adelaide beat Richmond, and then Freo come from behind to beat the Saints, and the buyers were Brisbane, Essendon, Geelong and GWS. Getting into the tips, first game is on Thursday night, 7:30pm, Marvel Stadium, got North Melbourne Western Bulldogs. This is North Melbourne's 100-year match, so they hope to put up a decent performance as well, given they don't play very often in primetime slots, and they actually are this week, which is pretty rare. So North record of 4-1-10. Last week lost to Hawthorn by 85. It was a pretty disappointing performance. Hawthorn just blew them out of the water, won the game by 85, but it could have been more, could have won by 100. North did kick a couple of goals in that last quarter to soften the margin, but it was a pretty disappointing performance if you're a North fan, and they were well and truly smashed. Then the Bulldogs 9-6 last week beat Sydney by 9. Sydney played pretty well. They do look a much better side when they've got all their players back, like your Tom Papleys and your Errol Gouldens. But the Bulldogs did hold them off, and Bulldogs are going pretty well at the moment. A couple of, I think, 3 wins in a row. Another game where you would think they should win, especially at Marvel, a place they play pretty well. And I'm going to tip the Bulldogs to win by a fair bit in this one. I reckon they'll get up by 55, with my Ollie's call Western Bulldogs lead all game. Next game, the first of 2 Friday night games, we've got Carlton v Collingwood, MCG 7:20pm. Carlton 6-9 last week. Lost to Port Adelaide by 50. It was a pretty disappointing performance. I would say the chances of making finals are probably over. There has been a bit of backlash over the loss and saying how they should sack their coach and all that. But I don't know. It's hard, because they always will lose a couple of games and then say, oh, we should get rid of the coach, but then they'll play good again a few weeks later, and it's just they're so inconsistent. And then you've got Collingwood, who are 13-2 last week, beat West Coast by 29. Yeah, Collingwood are flying. On top of the ladder, clear by 10 points. I can't see them losing to anyone at the moment, the way they're going. And it was another good win, as in over West Coast, and they didn't smash them, but a win's a win, so they'll take it, and this should be another pretty comfortable win. I'm going to tip Collingwood by 37, with my Ollie's call Brody Myercheck kicks 3+ goals. Next game at Optus, second Friday night game, we've got West Coast v GWS. West Coast 1-14 last week, lost to Collingwood by 29. It was actually a decent performance from the Eagles. They did put up a fight, which is really all you can ask for. They did lead at half-time, were down by a bit at 3/4 time, but not heaps. But then Collingwood run over the top of them, which you'd expect. But 1-14, they'll be looking for another win and hopefully for them, this is a match where they can look for another win. Then you got the Giants, 9-6. Last week had the bye. The week before that, comeback win over the Suns. I think they kicked 8 in the last, so it was a massive performance in that last quarter. And yeah, 9-6. They should make finals, but it's going to be close, and they'll definitely need to be winning games like this one pretty easily. And I think they will. I'm going to tip them to win by 62. And my Oz called GWS have 25 more inside 50s than West Coast. Then the first of 4 games on the Saturday and 2 at Marvel. Got Essendon Gold Coast, Marvel 12:35pm Saturday. Essendon 6-8. Last week had the bye. Week before that they lost to Freo. Over in the West by 41 points. Wasn't a very good performance, but you'd expect that. Very young side it was. I think they had quite a few players that were under 30 games, so you expect that, especially over in the West. Then the Suns, 9-5, last week beat Melbourne by 19. It was an interesting game. They dominated the first quarter, 6-0. Then Melbourne got back into it. Then the Suns looks like they're going to win by 50 or 60 points, and then Melbourne come back late in that last quarter, but it was never going to be enough, and the Suns got a pretty comfortable win in the end. And I think they should beat Essendon here against a very inexperienced Essendon side, and if they want to make finals this season, they definitely need to win games like this. So I'm going to tip them to get up by 19 with my eyes called Essendon lead at quarter time. And then GMHBA Stadium, 4:15 Saturday, Geelong Richmond. Geelong record 10-5, last week had the bye. So yeah, they're going pretty well. The week before that, they did have a loss to Brisbane at GMHBA, the whiteout game. Didn't quite go so well for them. It was probably their worst performance of the year. And Brisbane actually did not put one foot wrong the whole game. They played a very good performance from the Lions. But yeah, Geelong definitely weren't at their best. Kicked it pretty accurately, but they're still 10-5 and should win this one. And then you got the Tigers, 3-12 last week, lost to Adelaide by 68. It was an expected result, but it wasn't a great performance from them, and Adelaide just got a win they needed. And the Tigers, they were 3-6 at one point. Now they've fallen to 3-12. We'll be looking for another win at some point, but I don't think this is the game where they're going to win. I'm going to tip Geelong by 74. With my Ollie's called Jeremy Cameron and Tyson Stengel combined for 6+ goals. Next game on the first of the 2 Saturday night games, Brisbane v Port Adelaide. Brisbane record 10-1-4. Last week had the bye. The week before that, they had probably their best performance of the season over Geelong. Beat them by 40 points down in Geelong as well, which really showed why they won the premiership last year. And on their day, they can beat anyone and definitely are in the running for another premiership this year. And then you got Port Adelaide. Last week beat Carlton by 50. Bit hard to tell if Port Adelaide how they're going, because they smashed the Blues, but the Blues aren't going that well, so it's a bit hard to tell. But 7-8, this is a make or break game. But I think at the Gabba, Brisbane don't lose there very often. I'm going to tip Brisbane by 45. My Ollie's called Will and Levi Ashcroft combined for 50+ disposals. Next game, Hawthorn St Kilda on the Saturday night at Marvel Stadium, 7:40pm. St Kilda 5-10 last week, lost to Freo by 12. It was such a good first 3 quarters. Jack Higgins kicked one early in the last, and then it was all Freo from there. They kicked 5 in a row and got another win. So now the Saints, we were 3-1 and we've been 2-9 since. Haven't won in 4 weeks, so it would be nice to get another win at some point, but I don't think this is going to be the week. Hawks 10-5 last week beat North Melbourne by 85. It was a very comprehensive performance. Gunston kicked 7, Charles kicked 5, 12 between them. Pretty outstanding return. And I think be a similar result this week. I'm going to tip the Hawks by 59 with my Ollie's call. Hawthorn kicked 5+ first quarter goals. Then the the next game, one of the two Sunday games at the SCG, we got Sydney v Freo, 1:10 p.m. Sydney 6-9 last week, lost to Western Bulldogs by 9. Wasn't too bad of a performance. They look a lot better with Papley and Goulden back than they did, and I could actually see them winning this one. Final chances are probably over, but can they at least win a couple of games and show some promising signs in Dean Cox's first season? Well, it'll be tough to see if they can play to their best potential, but this game would be a game to prove that. And then Freo, 10-5 last week, beat St Kilda by 12. It was a great last quarter. It was a win they need. 10-5. They're going pretty well. They've won 6 in a row, and they'll look to continue that streak and make it 7. And I think they will. I'm going to tip Freo by 7. With my Ollie's call Caleb Sarong has 25 plus disposals. And then the last game of the round, Adelaide Oval, 3:15 p.m. Sunday, Adelaide v Melbourne. Adelaide at 10-5 last week beat Richmond by 68. It was a win they needed, and a win they just needed to get, and they got the win, and it was pretty comfortable. Really didn't put a foot wrong, and now they're 10-5 and really pushing for top 4. And then you got the Demons, 5-10 last week, lost to Gold Coast by 19. It was a promising performance in signs, but that first quarter really let them down, and it was basically game over at quarter time. So Melbourne, they're out of finals. They'll just be looking to get some late wins in the season and have an impact on who makes finals and who doesn't. But I think at Adelaide Oval, Adelaide don't lose there very often. I'm going to tip Adelaide by 27, with my Ollie's call Adelaide kick 16 plus goals. So, tips for this week, just recapping what I tipped. So first game, North Melbourne, Western Bulldogs. I'm going to go the Bulldogs, and I reckon they'll win pretty easily by, I'm going to say, 55. Then Carlton Collingwood. Collingwood should get up pretty comfortably. Giants should smash the Eagles on the Friday night. And then on the Saturday, Gold Coast should beat Essendon. Geelong should beat Richmond. And then I reckon Brisbane should beat Port Adelaide, and Hawthorn should beat St Kilda. Then the two games on the Sunday. Sydney Freo, pretty 50-50 game, but Freo have been in good form. And then finally Adelaide should beat Melbourne. So those are my tips for round 17 of the 2025 AFL season.